Hello everybody, Robin from Modo here, and I'm joined by Wendell, and we're going to talk about the power prices crashing in October 2022. So Wendell, what's the kind of headline news figure here?
So overall in the month, we saw power prices fall 55% from September.
Gosh.
But when we actually look at the volatility in those prices, we even saw the lowest day ahead spread since August 2021.
That is very different to what most people are expecting, I think, in October.
Yeah, and very different to what we saw all summer, really.
Yeah. So with a battery, with a £40 price spread, you're not really going to be doing very much.
No.
Right. So what was driving that sort of suppression and flattening of prices?
So there's two main things. So firstly, the weather. It was a very windy and warm month.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if we look at the total wind generation across the month, it was the third highest level of wind generation we've ever seen.
Blimey. I also don't recall a storm with a name in it during October.
Yeah, no storms.
Which
so
I do think there was in the Februaries.
Yeah. So when we look back in time, we can see that the two previous highest months being February 2020 and 2022, both of which we had a lot of storms coming off the Atlantic, whereas this October has just been consistently windy. That's
really good news. I guess we've also had one of the big offshore wind farms come online very recently, which must have helped boost up those numbers.
Yeah, definitely. So the increase in capacity we've seen in offshore wind definitely helped.
Brilliant. So has that meant that prices actually dropped close to zero on any days?
Yeah. So when we see it really windy and when we see demand at its lowest, so mostly overnight, we saw two instances of prices basically dropping to zero on the day-ahead market.
Wow. So that was on the wind side.
Yeah.
And how about on the gas side?
Yeah. So really the other factor, especially when we look, say, for the second half of the month, was that gas prices, not just in GB, but Europe, really crashed down to the lowest levels we've seen, since May in GB.
So we had really one period where it was like an hour on the spot price, where it was a zero price for gas?
I think it was even negative for 1 hour in Europe.
Gosh. So given the situation in Europe with Ukraine, what's going on there? Why have we got really low gas prices when everybody is talking about how high gas prices are?
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest question, really. And so I think the difference is when we're looking at forwards prices versus what's actually traded sort of at this spot price.
Okay, so that's like the contracts that people buy months ahead of time.
Yeah.
Those are trading very high still.
Yes.
But when I'm looking at buying gas tomorrow, my price has crashed.
Yeah, and so this is a similar sort of thing we saw to oil prices in sort of May 2020, when we see demand fall, but you've still got this kind of physical commodity that you need to put somewhere. That's where you see prices, at least especially short-term prices, really crash.
Okay, so this is all to do with the amount of storage we have for gas.
Yes.
And we've been filling up that storage all through the summer through lots of LNG imports.
Yeah.
And that's now full. And when more imports are coming in to Europe, there's nowhere to put it, so the price goes to very low or negative. Yeah,
more or less. That's exactly what's happening here. So Europe has reached like 95% storage capacity for the year, which is really good. I mean, it was like a target of 80%, so it's kind of well above that. However, they've still kind of got LNG flowing over from mostly the US, and ultimately it wants to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So without having anywhere to put it, that's what's caused prices in the short term to fall.
Okay, cool. And that, of course, means that the short-term power prices have also fallen because gas is the marginal plant on the system.
Exactly. And that explains the kind of collapse in prices we see from mid-month, really.
And the kind of squishing in the volatility as well.
Yes.
Awesome. So what does that mean for where are we now? November, December?
So far in November, it's been as windy or even more windy. I think so. We actually saw the kind of October saw the record half hour for instantaneous wind generation.
Was this when National Grid were tweeting that we had 20 gigawatts?
Yeah, but then that was beaten last week in November at 20 gigawatts.
Nice.
So far in November, it looks like being very similar to October. And so even if gas prices might rebound a little bit, it still looks like being equally as windy. Okay,
but sort of longer term this winter, I believe the Met Office have put out an updated forecast which says we actually might be colder than normal and stiller than normal.
Yeah, so every year Met Office put out this kind of winter outlook, and so the latest one, looking ahead 3 months, basically put the probability of a cold, still winter at greater than average.
Okay, so whatever that means as a statistician.
Yeah.
So we still think we're going to get some really, really high prices later on in the winter when things get a bit more chilly.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at everything that's been coming out of National Grid, everything that's coming out of sort of government, there's clearly some still very big concerns over capacity. And so far we haven't really seen any of those at play because it's been so windy.
Yep.
But if we do see wind drop down, especially if it's coinciding with a cold period,
Yep.
then yeah, we wouldn't be surprised at all to see those price spikes like we saw last year.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for digging into the details of that, and catch you again soon.